Candid and complex conversation around what is happening in our country. Many of you might know that more than 5 million people bought firearms for the first time in their lives in 2020. And it is the USCCA's mission to help train them. So this is a discussion about training and safety and things that we need to do to protect our family. And we have a great panel discussion today. I'd like to bring up to the stage Chris Chang. He is, perhaps you have seen him on this magazine cover. Very cool for Recoil magazine. So Chris is a sharpshooter. He is also the winner of History Channel's Top Shot from Silicon Valley in California. In December of 2013, Chris came out as being gay on his official blog to break down the stereotypes of the LGBTQ community and gun enthusiasts. And most recently, he was involved in the Pride cover for Recoil magazine. Let's hear it for Chris. Kendra Geronimo is from Miami, Florida. She is a mother of 2. She is a firearms instructor, a private investigator, a certified self-defense instructor, and a sex trafficking survivor who works with the Liberation Team, which is dedicated to rescuing victims of human trafficking. Let's hear it for Kendra for coming here today. Beth Alcazar, a mother of 3, and she doesn't count the furry one. She is the author of Women's Handgun and Self-Defense Fundamentals. She is the associate editor of Concealed Carry magazine and a creator of the popular women's focus USCCA blog column. Beth has enjoyed nearly 2 decades, and that's where we stop, nearly 2 decades of instructing and working in the firearms industry. Let's hear it for Beth. Jennifer Mostyn. She is a busy mom of 4, a PTA president, managing director of a financial firm, and also a domestic violence survivor. Her story is powerful, and as a member of Voices Committee for Sojourner Family Peace Center, she shares her story to make a difference, whether it's speaking to prisoners or to lawmakers. Let's hear it for Jennifer. Argo J, or Jay, is a Milwaukee father of 3. He's a special education teacher. His journey to become a gun enthusiast and Second Amendment civil rights activist started because of an incident 11 years ago, and now he shares his knowledge with a large social audience and following. Thank you for coming here today. Appreciate it. So Jay, I've got to start with you. I want to hear about this incident that happened 11 years ago. What brought you to this panel today?
Okay, first of all, hello everyone. What brought me to this panel today, or what brought me into the world of firearms, even more, I was into it prior to, was when my home was attacked by a bunch of individuals, and I'll tell you the story. I'd come home the night before, went out to the club, and at that time I was drinking pretty heavily, so I was sleeping late, enjoying the rest the early morning, and I was awakened by loud banging on my door. And I could just, it was just earth-shattering at the time. I realized that it wasn't normal banging. So I went to go look. I looked out my window, and I saw a group of individuals. I lived in a duplex at the time. The individuals were there looking for my upstairs neighbor. Okay, he had done something that they didn't like. They were coming to get him, but they were banging on my door. And I also noticed that some of them were armed. So I went to my bedroom. I got one of my guns, and I saw that there were more of them. And I said, man, I probably need to rethink what I grabbed, and I grabbed a larger weapon, larger firearm, and I went outside and tried to deal with the situation. Luckily, I never had to use my firearm. They saw it, they tucked tail and ran. But it made me realize that evil really has no real motive other than to do damage. It doesn't have a demographic, it doesn't have a preference, it doesn't have a time. Like, evil doesn't care. It will find you and it will come for you, and you have to be prepared because you are the only one who can protect yourself and protect your family. And at that time, my daughter was maybe 17, I think, and she was in there sleeping. And there's no way that I'm going to let people come into my house and my kids are there. There's no way. Like, I'll blow up the world for my kids. I'm sure most of you parents will. How many people out here are parents in the audience here? If you're a parent, put your hand up, okay? If you're going to be a parent, put your hand up, right? Okay, so now, how many of you would do anything for your kids? Like, anything to protect your kids, anything that they need, anything to ensure their safety? It blows my mind when people say, I'll do anything for my kids. But then when we have the conversation about firearms, oh, but firearms are bad. I can't even put that idea into my head. I can't even wrap myself around that. I can't bring myself to even find out about firearms, to find out how to protect my children. Well, I thought you just said you'd do anything. I would blow the world up for my children if that's what it required, because I love them that much, that much. But if I could leave you with anything, like I tell people all the time, I think I said it in my speech, I love guns like I love food. Okay, not that I eat guns, right? But that in the fact that when my son comes home at night or comes home at the end of the day, and he's had a long day of going to school or a long day of play, and he comes home and he can go into the kitchen and go into the refrigerator and grab a glass of milk or make a sandwich or get a Hot Pocket or whatever he likes, and he knows that refrigerator is there. It's like he's safe and he's comfortable. He can go, he can nourish himself, he can make himself whole, he can keep himself whole with that. That's the same feeling that I get when it comes to guns. Those guns ensure that I keep my children safe. Those guns ensure that I keep my family whole, that I keep the precious gift from God safe and protected. Because that's my only purpose as a parent. That's my only duty, is to educate them and to show them how to walk this walk through life. But I can't do that if I can't keep them safe. Now, I know my description says I'm a civil rights advocate, and yes, I am, but not in the traditional sense like we think of MLK and people like that. I'm a civil rights advocate when it comes to firearms, because if I ask everybody in here, what do you consider to be a civil right? Everybody will give pretty much a different answer. And that's great, because it is what it is to you. But how do you protect that right? So in that, guns are a civil right. Gun rights are civil rights. If we can't protect the things that keep us safe and that keep us away from evil, then what are we doing here? Then what's the point? So yes, gun rights are civil rights if people don't know. And they must be protected at all costs, because that's the only way that we can protect those that we love.
Chris, or should I say Mr. Google? No?
I don't work there anymore, so
yeah,
I
right.
used to be Mr.
But
Chris.
it was at the time that you were working there, right? When you got into watching Top Shot, and tell people about that.
Yeah, so my journey with firearms actually started at the age of 6. And my father, taught me how to shoot, and it wasn't something that we did frequently, though. It was every 3 or 4 years, pull the guns out of the safe, go rent a lane at the range for an hour or two, punch some holes in paper, guns go back in the safe, and that was it. And that's sort of up until my late 20s. That was sort of the cadence with how infrequently I was shooting firearms. But when Top Shot started airing on the History Channel, if you haven't seen the show, it's incredibly fun. You bring in 18 Americans from all walks of life. I was one of the few self-taught amateurs, sort of dark horse, X Factor, kind of a competitor who shouldn't be on a show like that, going up against law enforcement, military, long life, hunters and Olympic shooters, and watching these competitors and seeing this very positive representation of firearms usage in a very positive manner had such a strong impact with me, because I think there's so many negative representations of guns in American culture, movies, TV, the nightly news, and so Top Shot for me was a counterbalance to this overwhelmingly negative mainstream media narrative that we see. And so Top Shot was really my foray into being more interested in firearms. I purchased my first firearm the year prior to Top Shot, airing. And then when season 4 of Top Shot aired, and that was my season, I was living this dream of, it's like when you're watching one of your favorite game shows or TV shows, and you start fantasizing like, well, what would it be like to be on The Price is Right, to be on Jeopardy or the Wheel of Fortune, and then that fantasy comes true, and you're like literally standing, I'm standing on the Top Shot range. The host, Colby Donaldson, who's multi-time Survivor alumni, and he's got very pretty teeth. So if you know Colby Donaldson, his teeth are as pretty in real life as they are on TV. But right, it's like just like it was a jaw-dropping, like such a fun experience to be in the Top Shot environment. And
but it took a lot for you to get there, because you told your friends, I'm going to get on that show. And what did they say?
So I was watching episodes of Top Shot, season 1 and 2, with 2 of my Google colleagues. And at the time, I wasn't shooting much. I didn't have any awards or accolades, no formal training. I was shooting a little bit in local matches at my club, but I was placing in the bottom 50% kind of thing. And so when I turned to my colleagues and I said, hey, I think I'm going to apply to season 4 of Top Shot. And they go, Chris, like, you're not qualified. Like, why would you even think you stood a chance to be competitive on the show? And I go, look, all I know is that when I'm at the range, I can hit my targets, I have a lot of fun, and the only way that we ever know where we stand in life is if you throw your hat in the ring and compete. And what I love about Top Shot is it's an objective marksmanship competition. Talk is cheap, and it's either you hit your target or you didn't. You shot faster than other people or not, and I love that aspect of competition. And for me, I've never felt more alive than competing on Top Shot and feeling the adrenaline, feeling that pressure, having to tap into the hundreds of hours of training and practice that I put into winning Top Shot, because I knew how far behind the curve I was, and that I was going to need to make sacrifices, and that nothing comes easy in life, right? Like I was raised to work hard, and if I want to become really good at a skill set, that you have to train, you have to make sacrifices, you have to say no to some of the fun things, like hanging out with your friends, or sometimes, sorry parents, like I can't come to family dinner because I'm training for Top Shot. And I guess the last thing I want to mention briefly about my experience with firearms is back to when I first shot a gun at the age of 6. At the time, I think when we're all children, at least for me, I just assumed that this was every other kid's experience, that, other 6-year-olds are also learning how to shoot guns. Obviously, as an adult, I realized, whoa, like that's actually not the case. And in fact, oftentimes it's the complete opposite case. We have parents actively discouraging their children, right, to fire, guns, and right, because they're scary or whatever sort of reasons that parents have, right, for not training their children to use firearms. And so I've come to really appreciate the amount of trust that my parents put in me, and that was a very strong foundation of what personal responsibility and what safety means for me, and having that personal responsibility mindset has been a very strong rock and a foundation for how I live my life and my personal philosophy of also how I want to carry myself and encourage others to carry themselves as well. And so with the Second Amendment, right, this is now, a lot of Asian Americans are waking up to the fact that, look, like, we do not have to be helpless victims. We cannot be quiet anymore, because our silence is our compliance, and our silence is the thing that makes us easy targets. Whether it's true or not, those of us who are quiet, it's perceived as weakness. And so that is why the Second Amendment continues to be more important for me, not just as a gay man, but as an Asian American. And I'm heartened to see that lots of other Asian Americans are realizing that with the civil unrest, with the distrust in law enforcement, with calls to defund the police, with all of just general instability in our society these days, that there is an option to protect ourselves. The Second Amendment is that option. Now, this is not to say guns are for everyone. It's about the option. It's about freedom. It's about the liberty and the personal choice to decide, do I want to purchase a firearm to defend myself? And for a lot of Asian Americans, like that question often is like not even in their heads. And so that's a big part of my advocacy, is just it's that first little question of,
take the step.
do you want to take the step? Here's why I think you should take the step. But if you take the step, that comes with responsibilities, it comes with training, there is a cost, right, to all of that responsibility and the training. So it's going to be a lifelong conversation for me and the Asian American community, and again, I'm heartened to see the increased conversation amongst the Asian American community when it comes to the Second Amendment and gun ownership. The one thing I want to leave with the audience today is the point I made earlier about being vocal and visible, about specifically here today about being a gun owner. I've seen too much of a connection between some negative components of the gay rights and gun rights movements when it comes to closeted gun owners and closeted gun people. To me, they're very similar concepts, right? If you're a closeted gay person, you're living in a world of shame and fear, right? If you can't publicly say to the world, I'm gay or I'm LGBT, it's the same thing as being a gun owner, right? That you are allowing a culture of fear and shame to dictate who you are or who you present to yourself to the world. And so this negative narrative about firearms ownership and guns in general, it continues and perpetuates when there's more closeted gun owners. And so the fewer closeted gun owners that there are, that means there's more positive representation of gun owners, such as everyone here in this room. And that is a key component of how we win the Hearts and Minds campaign and component of this fight for the Second Amendment and this fight for our civil rights.
Well, I didn't grow up with guns in my home at all. It's not that my family was against it in any way, shape, or form. It just wasn't a normal part of our everyday lives. But kind of by happy accident, I did get involved with the shooting, hunting, outdoor industry and was able to use some of my talents and skills in a really great community of people. So as a writer and editor, that was something I'd already pursued. And I love instruction and teaching, and I'm very passionate about presenting and sharing with others, and somehow I was able to get involved with an industry that supported that in a unique way. But even though guns started to become more normal for me, and I would definitely go to different events where I would shoot them and get to learn more about them and kind of live vicariously through some other folks who were really super talented with firearms, it didn't really become a major part of me or my family until about 8 years ago, when there was actually an armed gunman in my daughter's middle school, and that was 6 miles from my home. And, you know, here I was one day just hanging around on social media, you know, looking at everybody's recipes. What are they making for dinner tonight? How's everyone's fur babies doing? And, you know, all the normal kind of stuff you would do in an afternoon as kids are getting done with school and you're preparing for them to come back into the house and trying to mentally be ready for transitioning from maybe some relaxation to some, okay, I'm on. I got to do this. I got to play the mom. I got to be a good parent. But all of a sudden, instead of seeing that kind of a feed on Facebook specifically, I started to see just panic messages. What's going on at the middle school? What's happening? You know, why are the buses not being released? And I just kind of sat back thinking, okay, is this a joke? Is this some kind of a drill? You know, we're used to our kids having armed intruder drills now, but something was really off. And I get chills just thinking about the feeling that was going on, like the unknown and the fear and the uncertainty. and the helplessness, because what can I do? I'm 6 miles down the road. There's nothing I can do. We found out that the armed gunman came in. He had worked at the school previously, so they recognized him. They let him in, and he held 5 of the young girls hostage in the gym, right where my daughter had just played basketball for the season, and we're happy memories and good times. But we were so lucky that an armed resource officer was at that school. And within 15 minutes or so, he was able to defuse and stop whatever could have happened. We don't know. He was able to stop this man and make sure that those kids, especially those 5 young ladies, were safe. But for me, 6 miles down the road, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, this is not like national news. This is not hundreds of miles away. This isn't in California or some other state I've never visited. This is my hometown. These are my friends. These are the people I interact with. These are the people I might grocery shop with. These are my kids and my kids' friends. And it was that moment that, for me, it was kind of a culmination of skills and thoughts and planning and preparation. I'm like, it's not enough that I have guns. It's not enough that I even, go and practice every once in a while. It's not enough that I have a concealed carry permit. I need to get serious about this. If this is going to potentially be an option for me as first responder for my family, I need to get serious about it. So everything kind of came together full circle for me, and I just poured my soul and myself into learning more so that I could be more prepared, so that my family could be more prepared, and then I wanted to share it with my community and then anybody who would listen, because it's important that we have options, because nothing is more valuable than those folks, those members of your family and your loved ones. I think one thing that stands out in my mind is, I mentioned earlier that, I had to speak before a committee and testify, and here I am, wearing my polka dotted raincoat, and people didn't really see me as the typical gun owner. But I think that's what I would leave with people, is that in 2021, there is no typical gun owner. And in no other place have I felt such amazing connection and unification than actually right here, like with this panel and this group in the gun community. The 2A community is for the most part quite outstanding. When you find the right people and you really get down to it, the diversity of our backgrounds. I mean, I can't tell you how many people I've met across the board in the gun community that we probably couldn't have a conversation about too many other things and not just go off on, opposite directions or maybe feeling a little bit uncomfortable or unsure. But when we talk about firearms, it's amazing because we're unified in the belief that we and our loved ones are worth our effort and our time to protect them, and worth the training, and worth all the things that we would go through to help them and to have this option. So what better thing to be unified in than the sanctity of life, and the importance of protecting it and preserving it. And in that instance, it doesn't matter what you look like, what you've been through, where you come from, or where you're going. We are all connected and unified in the fact that life is precious and meaningful. And that is so amazing and awesome. And nowhere else have I experienced such an amazing opportunity to come together than in this community.
And I'm so very grateful that you guys invited me to be here to speak, because I share a number of different experiences. So initially, I grew up in a troubled neighborhood, and guns represented something that wasn't for protection. It was very so offensive. It was for the gang members, and so I knew that it wasn't something that I wanted to carry a gun. I wasn't a gang member. I was a troubled teen, but I felt like owning a gun would bring more violence into my life. And then I unfortunately went through my incident, being a sex trafficking survivor, which I'm very grateful to have made it out with my life and being safe. But it still didn't quite register to me fully. I went home and I started shooting, and I started getting more familiar with guns and getting more comfortable with the environment. But it was recreational. It was a sport. It wasn't anything for protection. I put it in the gun range bag. I brought it to the range. I took it out, you shoot at the paper target, and then you put it back down. I didn't carry on my person. I didn't know anything about it being for protection, and that was where I had it. Fast forward a few years later, I was re-triggered by seeing my trafficker on a television special. And I had literally put it out of my mind. I escaped with my life. I sought out therapy. I put it behind me. I was living an entirely different life. Like, literally, my life was totally different, and nobody had known anything about who I was previous to that. So I was comfortable, I was secure, but I felt oblivious when I saw that special because he had just trafficked somebody 10 miles from my house. And in my mind, I left him across the world. So I didn't feel safe. I felt nervous, not just for me, but for my kids, for my way of living, for my identity's sake. I didn't feel like I knew how to protect myself out in the streets. I went back to having nightmares and seeing things, you know, in the corners that weren't there, and I got aggressive. I got the top of the line alarm system. I sought out every expert. I traveled the world literally for the last 3 years and sought out every bit of home protection, self-protection, and when I practice as realistic to how I carry. There's times where everybody throws on their vests and they do, you know, they go out to the range and they enjoy a range day, but I practice how I'm going to carry in my purse, in my sandals, in my heels, with it on my body. If I'm going to be going somewhere and I need to know in the moment, how do I pull it out? And these things are something that you have to train your body for and train your body for and train your body for, because when you need it the most, that's not when you want to be thinking, man, what was it that instructor said? Like, how do you protect my son? Like, was he supposed to be on this side of me? Do I bring him over here? You have to practice these things so that they're second nature, so you can protect the ones that you love. Like when you're in an airplane and the things drop down, they say you have to take care of yourself before you can take care of other people. Well, that's what training is. That you're taking care of yourself so then you can take care of others. And that's been my lasting motto. I will be that protector for me and my children. And my children know how to shoot. My children know they are Stop the Bleed certified. And they're 12 and 14 years old. They know how to wrap tourniquets. They know how to apply chest seals, chest wounds. They know the whys. They are situationally aware. They know how to keep their head on a swivel. They know how to look for dangers. And that's what it is. That's what it means to love someone, is to give them that gift of protecting themselves as well.
If there's one thing that you want to leave with the audience today, I want to give you that opportunity right now.
If there was one thing I could leave with everybody, it would be to arm up. And I don't mean that in just like the firearm reference. I mean that in the knowledge. I mean that in the practice, in the training, in the actual scenario training, because it's one thing to go to a course and have them tell you, okay, this is how you guard your house. But if you've never actually practiced in your house, then that can be a situation in the heat of the moment. Arm yourself with the actual awareness of what's going on in that world. Arm your children with that knowledge. A lot of people like to protect their kids, is what they think. I'm protecting them from the ugly out there in the world. But you're really not. You're really doing more damage to them in the long run by not letting them know what's going out in the world, because these things are so real. I have no idea why somebody wouldn't tell their child these things. What is it going to do? Save them in the future. If you don't tell them these things, they won't be aware of it, and they can potentially lose their lives from it. And then you will be really sad at the things that you didn't teach your kids. So teach them first aid, teach them firearm safety, teach them firearms, teach them escape routes in the house, situational awareness, teach them all of these things that maybe you didn't learn when you were growing up. Maybe you did learn. Maybe you see the world out there getting crazier and crazier. You want to arm up yourself, your family, your loved ones, your neighbors even, because your neighbors essentially also, if things go down, you need them. But if they don't know what you know, how do you share and balance off of each other? So we need to arm ourselves, the community, and everybody with knowledge, power, and the legalities behind it. Everybody, I think that's a very overlooked thing that I definitely would love to share and leave with everybody. Know what your laws are for self-defense, for what you can and can't carry, for what self-defense really means, because in the heat of the moment, you may feel like you're right, but there might be a technicality that you didn't realize. So arm yourself with that knowledge, because it's gonna be the most important thing after the fact that you need.
I grew up in a family of firearms. My brother is a Marine, and my father, growing up, he was a hunter, and he would take us out to the range as kids to shoot guns. He's always shot in clubs, and even to this day, builds guns. So guns have always been around me growing up, but I never personally felt the need to have one until I went through my experience. I was married to a man for about 6 years who physically, emotionally, and verbally abused me threw me downstairs when I was 7 months pregnant with my son, and broken bones and bruises, and I am extremely, extremely lucky because I was able to get out, and now I spend my life trying to talk to other women about how you can get out, and there are women who understand. My thing is, and again, I was so lucky that he was charged with 9 felonies. He was sentenced to 8.5 years in prison. That was 2 years ago. 2.5 years ago. So throughout our marriage, he would threaten me with guns. He'd put a gun on the bed and say, you know, somebody in this house is going to die tonight. You're going to die, or I'm going to kill myself, or I'm going to shoot everybody in this house. Would hold me down, put a gun to my head, saying, if you leave, I'm going to kill you, I'm going to kill our son. And I believe him 100%. When people threaten that they're going to do that, they're going to do it. I ultimately got out after a couple weeks after he ultimately tried to kill me. But going back to, he's in prison now, and I have 6 years left. I believe when he tells me he's going to kill me. Not a day goes by over the last 2.5 years and over the next 6 years that I don't think about what is going to happen when he gets out. When he gets out, he's not allowed to contact me or my kids for 10 years, but we all know what's really going to happen. So I am a huge believer, and I have the right to protect myself. I have the right to protect my children, and it's really the only option that I have. Guns are scary to people because they are such a powerful tool. If you are going to have one, make sure you are educated, make sure you are trained, make sure that you're training your children, make sure you're telling your children the importance of it. The majority of people who own guns are not bad people. And unfortunately, too many people think people who have guns are bad people. That's not the case. All you see is those bad people splattered across the media, splattered across the news. You don't see all the good things that guns are doing and how people aren't using them for just violence. They're not just violent. I truly believe guns don't kill people, people kill people. I fight with one of my daughters all the time about if we were to outlaw guns, she thinks there'd be no violence. If we outlaw guns, those people are still going to have those violent tendencies in them. They're just going to find another way. It's not guns that are causing the violence, it's the people that are causing violence. The fact that I have a gun in my home doesn't mean if one of my children gets pissed off or upset, or if one of their friends gets upset, that they're going to come into my house and take my gun and go shoot up their school. Just because I have a gun in my house doesn't mean that that is allowing that child to do something. That child is troubled, that child needs help. Like Jay said, it has to be educating and finding and teaching children and people other ways to let out their aggression. Has nothing to do with the guns. We have a right to have these firearms. We have a right to protect our children. For me, I could care less what happens to me in life. It's protecting my 4 children. God blessed me with those children, and my job is to protect them, and that's what we all should be able to do.
Truly appreciate your stories and your willingness to share. Just really so thankful that you were all here today.